Hello, my friends. Lori Ashcraft here again. I'm your host for VIVA LA EVOLUTION, which is produced by Recovery and Resilience Solutions, which is a branch of Crestwood Behavioral Health, a training and consulting branch. And today, we just have the privilege of interviewing someone who I've admired for years, Matthew Federici. And I first met Matt when he was involved in some other programs besides rap. Right now, we kind of think of Matt as like the rap man. And believe me, he's so much more than that. But now, for the last many, many years, he's been the backbone, the stability behind the Copeland Center, producing rap and many, many other programs. I was amazed listening to him. I would try to recite them, but I'm pretty sure I can't remember them. Well, I do remember Doors to Wellbeing because I participated in that at one point. He's got something called Reach that's really exciting. He's using some SAMHSA material to create a whole new approach to some things. Anyway, it's all very exciting. I know you're going to love it. And we talk about when we first met, and I didn't realize how long ago it was and how much we've actually done together. So without me babbling on anymore, let's hear from Matt. Here we go. Here we are with Matt Federici, someone that as I've told you, I've admired for a long time. Matt, I'm so happy that you had the time to talk with us this morning and catch us up on what's happening with you and the Copeland Center. But before we get into that, I always like to have people tell their personal story of recovery. And I know that you have a multifaceted recovery process because you've dipped into several different zones of recovery. Would you mind talking to us a little bit about your recovery experience?
Not at all. I'd be happy to. And this is definitely the mutual admiration club here because I've known about. I have to say I'm entering my 50s, and it was in my mid 20s when I was reading stuff that you were producing.
Oh.
This will kind of segue into my journey, my experience, because a big part of that was coming out with a passion to work in social services, mental health services, and a big part of that journey was just really struggling with conflict and disconnect with where my passions were coming from in this work and what I was feeling stuck doing in those systems. And so I bring this up because finding some of the things that you were writing, William Anthony, Patricia Deegan, and then I had the privilege of being close by and meeting Dr. Mark Salzer with the Time of the Pen, and I really was doing that thing we do in our recovery, which is finding the supporters. And I was finding the supporters that were going to support me to shift or try to change what we were doing in the agencies and programs that I was at, because it was making me sick. I was, as you said, multifaceted. Another layer of my experience was that I didn't have the choice to be disclosed as a family member. My older brother went through criminal justice system, state hospital system, was really in the spotlight of the public mental health system. And I admire him. He was one of the first and probably one of the longest running, constantly employed peer specialists, but they weren't peer specialists back then. His first job was a consumer liaison, is what they called him. He first got through NAMI. He first got a little seed grant and started a newsletter called Inner Voice, right? And it was all kind of educational stuff that he was finding for himself, and he put this newsletter together and kind of rebuilt himself from that. One of the things that I observed in that was that my brother's journey was one where I witnessed him really not having a social connection his whole childhood. And so, of course, when his crisis came about, it didn't really shock me. I mean, I had a psychologist say, "Aren't you angry, because of some of the things that happened?" And I said, "No, I understand. Like, as a younger brother watching some of the bullying, like today, there's a culture of things on the spectrum that he would have gotten more support than he did back then. There's a lot of trauma related to it. But the key thing I wanted to say about this was that the consumer movement and consumer conferences, when he began to write his newsletters and get involved, he started getting speaking opportunities, and he went to these consumer conferences. And I actually saw a side to him in his late 20s that he never saw. And it was because he finally had a sense of belonging and a community that accepted him for who he was, as unique and quirky. And so that was right off the bat was a power of, for me, it was like, this is where people are experiencing recovery, not necessarily treatment. I mean, we all go to the doctor and get treatment here and there, but the real wellness in our life we find in other places. And we might take the pills as prescribed for a period of time, but that's not sustainable. What's sustainable is community and belonging. And
absolutely.
And it was like, there's like two brothers that I grew up with. Now, with all that said, again, I didn't have an opportunity to choose to be disclosed as a family member at the time. But I also know that I felt the stigma of being a family member and a provider, and the comments that were made. And that closeted me. Like, that caused me to never talk about my own personal experience with some significant challenges, including, hospitalization. And but I was protected by that magical age where a lot of my information was much more private. And so, which good, because that gave me the choice. But I chose not to. There was no value for it. There was no role at that time. But I would sneak it in my interactions and supporting people, because it's where I thought I was making the difference, was making a connection.
Sharing your own experience.
Yeah, I'm sure there's therapists and providers that are out there that do the same thing, and how they build their rapport is by making connections because of their experience. Like, well, I can imagine it's like this, right? And it's like, yeah, you get it. Well, it's not because of the textbook stuff. It was because of my lived experience. But what was missing there was normalizing that experience for the other person by saying, I had that experience too.
Yes.
Because that was like taboo, right? And so, this is what drove me to connect with people like yourself, and, looking up and utilizing research produced by Bill Anthony and Mark Salzer, and things done by Patricia Deegan, because it supported what I knew to be true and valuable. And when the opportunity was present in Pennsylvania through the Mental Health Association, at that time led by Joseph Rogers and Gene Whitecraft, where they were going to roll out this workforce of trained peer specialists, I jumped on the opportunity because it really created an environment, a well-being ecosystem for me, where I could finally use my lived experience and leverage support for people around them. What I didn't necessarily anticipate was being a part of this community to this day now, over 20 years, where I have grown and learned so much beyond what I thought recovery was about, because of the many diverse, unique perspectives and a culture of disclosure and sharing that is beyond just mental health. Like, we don't share enough about our healthcare journeys. We treat all of our healthcare like it's private, and then therefore we all get disadvantaged from not having that lived experience shared with us, and then we repeat the same journey and have to struggle through, whether it's like diabetes or, my partner just recently went through a stroke, and like, when she went through that whole journey, I, was right there with the whole treatment team, and I said, where are the other stroke survivors? Where's the stroke survivor group? they were crediting my wife for being very resilient and active in her rehabilitation. I said she would be a great coach to others. Where's that program? That didn't exist. They're like, that's a great idea. I'll bring that up to administration. So one of the aspects of I just recently discovered was that I was I'm potentially, in the language here, is the victim of the opioid crisis, right? That
I didn't know that about you till recently. That must have been a difficult process.
Yeah, I didn't know that about me until recently, until thanks to, I've learned a lot from the LGBTQ plus community, just about the fluidity of gender, through their stories. And I can't say I experienced feeling misgendered, but I definitely can have experienced barriers to binary gendering. But I also have learned from the addictions recovery community and the current, discussions around the opioid crisis. And I, went back and I'm like, when I looked at the timeline of the major depression that I fell into at a very young age, I realized that due to medical stuff that I was going through, I was loaded up on these medications, these pain medicines.
Yeah.
And not being self-reflective at that age to even know why, even past the injury, I was still taking these medicines. And when I timelined the depression, I basically found it was it was about when I ran out of those pills. And then I started to go in this reckless path of substances until it dwindled down. But the system defined what was going on for me as just this depression, right? It was just it's just this mental illness, this depression. And I since learned in my experiences that there was some trauma involved in that depression. But it wasn't until recently I realized, I was crawling back up from addictions recovery. And when that really clicked for me is I had kidney stones and I got the pain medicines again. And if I had not been a part of this community of people that take on recovery as a part of our whole life, and creating the space for shared lived experience and self-examination like we do, I might not have realized, I might have fallen right into it. But I got the pills for my kidney stones, and then I realized, whoa, wait a minute. I'm falling into some stinking thinking here about this. I don't need these pills. And I gave them to my partner and I said, I don't want to have control of these right now. You'll know when I need them, because when you have kidney stone pain, it's pretty obvious. But then it clicked for me and this is what can happen to us when we don't have that peer support, that recovery community is, we get triggered in a subtle way back into a cycle that maybe we once got ourselves out of. And, we're talking about a 25-year difference here between when that happened and when this could have happened again. And, I credit
an updated look at it.
Yeah, I credit the peer recovery community in doing this work, which is why I love being at the Copeland Center and what we do here.
Yeah, that's one of the most admirable things I think you've been able to do with the Copeland Center has been to build community all over the world. I mean, it's not like a community you walk out and you have neighbors, but it's all over the place. And you've done such a brilliant job with that. It's just amazing. I didn't know if that model would have been sustainable, but it turned out it was. And it's just amazing. Just admired that with you and the folks you work with. Let's talk a little bit. Oh, first of all, thanks for sharing your personal story of recovery.
Oh, thanks,
yeah, there's a lot of gems in there that I think are going to be very helpful to people. So thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening now with the Copeland Center. What programs are you offering? How are you moving into the future? Things like that.
Well, obviously, I'd love to. I love the Copeland Center for Wellness and Recovery, because it is been dedicated to transforming systems, around the world. We are a nonprofit peer-run organization here in the United States, but people often say, "Well, where's the Copeland Center?" I say, well, it's where you need us to be, right?
That's good.
Yeah, this wellness and recovery for us is a community, not a commodity. It's another thing I like to say about what we
I
do.
love that.
It's yeah, it is like you said. I really appreciate your comments about it is about community. It was always my understanding, and I guess I can kind of connect that back to my story with seeing the transformation for my brother. It came from that sense of belonging, but that openness, and so for me, coming on board, the opportunity at the Copeland Center was there was this mental health recovery networking that was happening. People were sharing information and coming together and talking about what was working in their lives and developing curriculums and programs and educating each other. And for me, that was the exciting part about what the organization, and that's what I discovered was that there's so much I benefit. I'm so I feel so grateful to all the people who come out and have the courage to kind of say, this is what I'm dealing with, and this is how I figured out how to handle it, and to support one another.
Yes, yes.
Every innovation, every step forward the mental health system and addictions community has made to help people came from people with lived experience.
Yeah, really.
I studied the books and the theories, and there's a lot of really great academics that have contributed to this, and I'll talk a little bit about some of them. But in the end, it doesn't connect. It never takes hold if it doesn't have the stories. It doesn't connect back to day to day. And for me, that's what the Copeland Center represented. It was this community, and it's grown. I mean, I was just working with an organization in Hong Kong last night, and it's just amazing to see how the values of this work have spread internationally. And we're still up against. I was on the call, last night with 62 employees of an organization in Hong Kong called New Life, and they were talking about action plans for dealing with the stigma when something happens in the community. That they don't want that stigma to fall back on the people they serve. And so what are the action plans we can get the message of recovery out there? Because when things happen in the community, that the community likes to turn to somewhere to blame, and we're all the folks to do that. So this network is important. And moving forward, next year will be the Copeland Center's 20th anniversary. And so we are looking right now at locations to host a 20th anniversary conference, to bring our network together, and to exchange and explore the various different ways that we can advance the cause of hope and empowerment and self-determination.
Well, and over the years, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm getting excited here.
Yeah.
Over the years, you've added other very interesting elements, like Doors to Wellbeing. Is that a federally funded project still, or what is?
Yeah. So Doors to Wellbeing is an initiative that we took up to first and foremost help support and expand peer-led organizations, peer practices, support the peer workforce, and SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration.
Right.
They have funded what's called a National Consumer Technical Assistance Center. I don't know if that language is going to change because we're kind of moving away from the term consumer, but nonetheless, SAMHSA has always really supported, kind of the retention and the expansion of our movement through these TA centers. And there's like 4 or 5 TA centers. And so this was a good fit for us to apply for, because we had already kind of, without any dedicated funding, we have been a group of peers that have worked to do outreach and to seek contracts and opportunities to fundraise for ourselves, and created, a network. At that time, we maybe have about 55,000, people that have participated in webinars or trainings and sessions that we've held.
Yeah.
But we had this network that we wanted to leverage, that if we had some dedicated funding, we could really lean into. And so we created Doors to Wellbeing, which is really dedicated to expanding the ways we can reach our well-being. But at our heart, we're always about advancing and developing programs based on the real life experiences of people who are living with the challenges and those that love them. And so that's why Doors to Wellbeing is really a dedicated program to that peer workforce and peer-led initiative. So we currently we have about 2,000 plus attendees in a peer webinar series every month.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it really is very incredible how the communities come together, because I don't think there are too many webinar series that in our community that get 2,000 plus on a regular basis.
So. Not just your community in general.
Yeah, and we really do intentionally look at getting speakers and opportunities that give people platforms that have very important things to say that otherwise are not getting those platforms.
Yeah.
And so that's a big focus of how that series comes together. And through Doors to Wellbeing, we've had an opportunity to develop partners with researchers that are peer allies, right? Like Dr. Judith Cook and Dr. Mark Salzer.
Yeah.
Dr. Mark Salzer.
What great people to have in your corner, my gosh.
Yeah, Mark is really passionate about community inclusion, and that is a big piece to who we are, what we do. So we partnered where they're doing the research around the benefits, the importance, and then we actually have a couple interventions that are peer-led that we're working on and testing. One is called REACH, which is resiliency, education, activity, community, and health. And it's long, that's why it's called REACH. But
right.
it's really based on Mark's research, which is that a lot of people who end up in the mental health system by design are incentivized to decrease their activity. And that with lower levels of activity, and you don't have to be like, we're not talking about like go run a marathon, but just meaningful self-directed movement and activity in your life, it helps in the rehabilitation and the wellness of your cognitive functioning, your overall health. And so we've developed a program that is peers working together and how we increase our activity and meaningful activity too, because a lot of times people are doing activities in programs, but it's not self-directed.
Oh no.
And part of the research is that not having meaningful and self-directed activity can be very unhealthy, even if it is active. So
or boring. I mean,
yes, exactly.
I used to say to folks, if you would just be irresistible and inspiring, you wouldn't have to worry about anything else. But we don't do it. I mean, we make people go through anger management classes 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why they're bored or why they aren't excited about their life. So I love this REACH idea. What a great idea.
Yeah, it will. Once the studies are complete, we'll be able to see how well it does, and roll it out more broadly. Something that's really exciting that we're embarking on is based on some public domain documents, materials, curriculums that SAMHSA has, and I have to always tip my hat to Paolo DeVecchio, who is the head of the Office of Recovery now, and that is speaking volumes that we have an Office of Recovery now, and somebody with lived experience like Paulo is leading it. But a little while back, Paulo, through SAMHSA, developed a curriculum called Taking Action.
Heard of that?
Yeah, and we are reaching out to collaborate with SAMHSA. It's great curriculum that could really benefit from our network of peers working together out there. And again, Copeland Center has a very unique brand to our focus, and we have, again, over 20 years of highly experienced peer trainers, facilitators,
Yeah.
some of them which have been doing nothing but wellness work, peer work, constantly. It's not like that one group you run in your program, right? That they live this. And so we are rolling out what is going to be a taking action for whole health and well-being.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a very powerful, comprehensive curriculum. What's great about the components of the curriculum is that when SAMHSA developed this, they had about 15 individuals give input into it that came from lived experience of mental health, addictions, co-occurring, family care providers, and care providers, and mental health administrators that said, yes, these are the things that people are needing in our program. These are the keys. It's rooted in the many studies that have shown us that there are key concepts to recovery.
Yeah.
And along with those key concepts, when people are supported and engaged to self-direct their own self-management, there's so many studies that show that that's effective. And
huge difference. Huge.
Yeah. And there's a lot of great resources out there. What we know, though, is it can be challenging to engage people to utilize those tools.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of your early work, I think you wrote something with Bill Anthony about this, which is the values that you hold in that supportive relationship are the biggest evidence to what will work, right? So you could take the same tool or program or educational information. If the person supporting you with that doesn't hold the right values, it's not going to be engaging.
Right. Yeah.
And so this Taking Action for Whole Health and Wellbeing program is based on these core values and ethics. Things like focusing on strengths, avoiding medical and clinical language.
Yeah, definitely.
Unconditional regard, and always fostering a sense of hope. And one of my favorite, which is, exploring choices and options and not finding final simple answers. Because we all know we want those and we seek them, but they don't exist. So, but these values and ethics were used in Dr. Judith Cook's Fidelity Observation Schedule of her studies on illness self-management programs. And it's the heart of the Copeland Center's training and train the trainer around using this material is how do we present these tools to individuals and do it in ways where we hold those values and ethics.
And what I'm hearing you say, and Bill and I did write a lot about this, is relationship. If you're not willing to enter into an authentic relationship with somebody, and that's kind of trained out of professionals. They have their professional distance and their boundaries and so forth, which could get in the way of an authentic relationship. So what I'm hearing you say is we want to have those authentic relationships that will then foster the kind of things you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And another key ingredient for us, an active ingredient to the evidence base, is creating the peer group environment.
Yeah.
A lot of our services are slanted towards one-on-one dynamics. And we just can't leverage the power of real peer support when the dynamic is, kind of, hi, Lori, I'm a peer specialist. Let me tell you about some of the things that worked in my life. And if in that moment, my exact experience is not connecting with you, it's a cold start. It's hard to engage in. But if I'm facilitating and I value, and I understand and I value the dynamics of peer support, and I'm facilitating that room, and I share a little bit of my experience and I get other people to share, the equity in the room for people to find the connection that they need is so powerful. And so I'm a big believer in, and there's a way that we set up that dynamic in the room that is empowering, that is hopeful. And, at the same time, we used to do this thing that is pretty common to group dynamics. I learned it in graduate school, and it's called group norming. And
All right.
yeah, but what we found in that process was we were almost putting this message out, like, in order for you to be well, you need to give other people rules that they have to follow. And that's a very disempowering message, right? And then we find out, like, you have this rule about respect, and this person views respect differently, and now you're looking for that document to solve that conflict, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, what we found is that there's a peer approach to creating a supportive environment that doesn't have to be based in the traditional group norming. And these are the types of kind of evidence-based and experiential strategies that is kind of the heart of what the Copeland Center has kind of been incubating for years. And we're excited about the Taking Action program for whole health and well-being because, it allows us to, explore the concepts of rooted in empowerment for people in the room.
I can't wait to see what you're going to do with that. That's just, I want to learn that from you guys. So I'm going to keep in touch so I can see what's happening. So you've got Doors to Wellbeing going strong. You've got the REACH program, which sounds amazing. And now you're starting with this material, Taking Action. Is that what it's called with the SAMHSA?
Yes, SAMHSA specifically document is Taking Action, a mental health self-help program.
Okay.
We're calling it Taking Action for Whole Health and Well-being because we're going to lean into some sections in there about like wellness tools for diet, light, exercise, and medical care, and really pull in that, like, it's not just our mental health is interconnected with our physical health, our other medical health conditions. And so it's a more holistic opportunity.
Sounds wonderful. And then how does RAP fit into all of that?
So RAP is a program that the Copeland Center, it's a curriculum the Copeland Center has a long history of, advancing and forwarding around the world. It stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan. And Mary Ellen Copeland, who was on our board, developed this curriculum. It was her book company that she developed, and we'd worked with it for a number of years. In 2016, she sold her registered trademarks and rights to that to Advocates for Human Potential, and stepped off the board, and then we entered into a license agreement to continue to do that for many years. Recently, Advocates for Human Potential have shifted, rescinded our license agreement, and essentially disabled us to continue to operate using their marks. And RAP is Advocates for Human Potential's property, and they have the right to protect that property with license agreements. So we're not able to continue to work with that, but we love the work that we did with that, and we support people to explore all their choices and options. I mean, it's a big value and ethics of ours, and we're here to support the peer workforce and people who want to get well and stay well. And we think there's lots of tools, and part of our role is to kind of expand and advance a lot of those tools for people, so that there's no one pathway to getting well.
So the Copeland Center will not be teaching or doing RAP anymore. Is that the case?
Yes, we don't. We would need a license agreement, and we don't have one, so we can't continue to use those registered trademarks and those books and materials. So,
but it sounds like you've developed enough other things that you've got plenty to do.
Yes, and like I said, I think we have been radically successful in supporting that company's product and engaging the community to learn about it. And
oh gosh, yes, you've taken it to a whole different level.
And so, but there are other opportunities and programs that we are working with. I think one of the things that is two programs also that we're really excited about. One is as I mentioned, Dr. Mark Salzer at Temple University, has done great work around community inclusion, participation, and
Yes, for years
so
he's done.
we have a great program. I just love it so much on community inclusion, participation. It's called peer supported community inclusion, and again, it is another engagement group opportunity for people to engage in how their community identity, roles, and participation play a critical role in our well-being. One of the most powerful mottos that I find in that course is just the message that we don't get well and then start participating in community.
Right.
We get well through participation.
Yes, yes.
And what Mark's research has really demonstrated is that people are there are these core domains that cross culture and geography that encompass the domains of community participation, like employment, housing, romance, sex, and intimacy, civic life, leisure, recreation. And what the research has shown us is that people, when they fall into mental health system, they actually face significant barriers where people are discouraged to be in intimate romantic relationships. They're discouraged away from the domain of family and parenting, right? Yeah. They lose their child rights. They're told, you shouldn't go back to work. So employment. Right. And
they take everything away.
Yep.
And they take away the exact things that would be healing.
Yep. And we actually create the barriers and disincentivize people. And so these programs are about us as peers telling the story about how actually participating. Like a big thing for me was that I was supported when I was in the hospital to continue my education. I got pulled out of groups and a counselor had to help me keep up with my schoolwork. Yeah. And it was in that one-on-one attention with my schoolwork that I realized, oh, I'm actually pretty smart. I thought I was dumb all that time before. Yeah. Yeah. And but that is an example of getting the support to continue to participate in the community like everyone else, even though I was going through something.
Yes.
And everyone else in that hospital, nobody was getting that support. It was like school was put on hold until they could get out.
Yeah.
And this is that notion of we don't get well and then do those things.
Right.
We get well. Like I literally discovered my biggest wellness tool was reading Edgar Allan Poe poetry. Because I'm like, this guy gets it. So if I write dark poetry about my, deepest feelings, people will admire that rather than be scared, right?
Yeah.
So I started to lean into English literature and finding that dark literature that just made me feel like, okay, I'm not the only one that has these dark thoughts. And and it was literally the empowering part of my life, right? Not the medications, I had a great psychologist. So, but it was that participation. So the peer supported community inclusion course is really, about engaging with those stories and helping people kind of explore where they need to go in those domains, and reclaim like, I want to seek housing of my choice and I want it to look like this. And, but I know I need to make these steps to get there. And in that same group, somebody else might say, I need to get back involved in romantic relationships because, in actuality, the research shows that romantic relationships are instrumental to people's successful recovery. So that's another exciting program that we are working on. And then the other one is Peer Generation, which is a program that got developed here at the Copeland Center by youth for youth and is being utilized as a peer-to-peer curriculum for high school students.
Oh, great.
And
we need that stuff so much. That's just an age group that's critical for treatment.
Yeah, I know a little less about the curriculum because there's an empowered team of youth and transition age youth that developed it and deliver it. The little bits I have heard about it, I actually want to take the training because, I think that perhaps what the youth created here is even more powerful than anything else we have created as kind of older adults, right?
Huh, huh.
And the challenging part about that is kind of convincing schools, for example, that like, no, we could actually train the students in this model, and they can lead the programs, and if they need your help, they'll let you know. But it's really hard for those systems to actually
Yeah,
trust that the
yeah,
kids. I mean, in fact, I know from my own experience that the peer-to-peer dimension, if we're not providing the best tools to peers in high schools to help each other, they're going to each other anyway.
right. Yeah, yeah.
They're
That's who
only
they listen to each other, not to us.
Yeah, the point of engagement and entry of these programs is not going to be the teachers or the guidance counselors. It's going to be empowering the kids to
Yeah.
do it. But you have to step back and trust, like, yeah, guess what? When we're in high school and teenagers, we're talking to each other about suicide.
Mm-hmm.
What we're thinking about. We just are. And that is something that if we don't give them the tools to help each other to talk about it, they're going to do it anyway, right? But
Right.
that's one of those issues that folks are like, no, we can't have kids doing that. They may give each other bad ideas. Well, they're going to do that anyway. Let's help them get good ideas. Right? So.
They're definitely going to do it anyway. Well, Matt, I am just so excited about everything that you've got going on. You've just laid out about 6 really exciting programs, and I'm going to stay close to you so I can learn some of this stuff from you guys. It's really, really very inspiring. And you know what's coming to me is each generation has to redefine the path. And some tools work great for a while, but if we're going to sustain ourselves, we have to keep finding new pathways, because nothing stands still. It either goes down or it goes up. And the way to keep it going up is to keep creating new pathways. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. You're such a brilliant demonstration of that. I'm just so impressed. And again, so grateful that you had time to join us today and share some of that with all of us. So thank you so much. Thank you.
You, Lori, anytime. And I think your summary of that, makes sense. I listened to one of your earlier podcasts about how important creativity is to sustainability.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I took it to heart, and I said, yeah, and it encouraged me to keep on the path of staying creative. And so I have loads of people to thank for being able to have this lifestyle to do creative, exciting work that is meaningful.
Yeah.
And so love to have you join our team. So many great people. I mean, I think BJ North.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Such a big mentor in my life. Has opened my eyes up to certain things that I wasn't willing to challenge because it's what we always did.
Yes.
And really said, oh wait, yeah, we really shouldn't keep doing that. That makes sense. So I have so many people to credit, and love to have you join our team, our community.
Well,
So
call me in whenever you find an open seat. I'll be there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I love these conversations.
Okay, my dear. So long for now, and good luck to you and all of your amazing endeavors. Well, that was even more exciting than I thought it was going to be. All those programs they've developed over the years, and the expansion they've done with all their programs, RAP and everything else, worldwide. And Matt deserves, I'm sorry to say, Matt deserves most of the credit for all that happening. It's taken someone with his energy and dedication and commitment to really make things like that happen. You can go back and look at remember the leadership podcast we did a few weeks ago? Go back to that chart and check it off, and you'll just find that Matt kind of meets all of those. He checks all the boxes, as they say. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.